right, welcome on into a special Tier List Tuesday edition. If you're watching live, then you're seeing us on Fridays, so Tier List Friday? I don't know. We also have Fancast Friday coming up later on. Of course, DCU Daily sandwiched in the middle of all of that, but it's going to be fun. We are here doing a Tier List Tuesday. Of course, the topic you guys voted on, it's going to be the Fast and Furious movie franchise. It's a long time coming, and we are finally here. We're gonna be ranking every Fast and Furious movie. Of course, when we're doing this, Fast Forever hasn't come out yet, so technically it doesn't exist yet, so we can't really, put it on a tier list, but we will do every other mainline movie, all 10 of them, as well as Hobbs and Shaw, so we'll get into all of that. I'm, of course, your host, Daniel. I'm going to be running this solo today because, well, John hasn't seen many of the Fast and Furious movies, his loss, I suppose. So he'll be on for DCU Daily later if you are watching live. And yeah, Tony already dropped in the chat saying, "Holy Packed Friday, Batman." That's right. That is right. But hey, you know what? As I always like to tell you guys, you can vote on your version of the tier list as well. The link is in the live chat. If you're watching live, if you're watching once the show is not live, you can go in the description down below. The link is there, and the tier list is going to be up for a vote for a week. So we're doing this on Friday the 27th of February. So you have till the following Friday to do your vote. Of course, we will go over, what the final results of the vote were once the poll expires. But hey, as we usually do to start the show, we kind of take a quick look back at how things went with last week's Tier List Tuesday, which feels like it was more than a week ago because it was, we did it on a Tuesday, not a Friday. So it's been like a week and a half now since that happened. So keeping that in mind, let me quickly go over the results of that. Of course, last Tuesday we ranked the 10 best Black supervillains as part of Black History Month, which we are now coming to an end of. We have done a tier list for Black superheroes and now Black supervillains. Both of those were your choices. So once the voting closed, it looks like we ended up with Killmonger all the way at the top in the S tier alongside pretty much everybody else because somebody hijacked the voting. But as far as the list that we ended up doing on the show ourselves, I personally put the Killmonger in S tier. And then below, nobody else for me was S tier of the 10 that we did. So we did an A tier for Deadshot. That's my opinion. Again, I put him in A tier simply because, Will Smith did a fantastic job with the character that honestly probably didn't deserve such an A-list of an actor playing the role, but that's what we got in that first Suicide Squad movie. Then of course we had Black Mariah from the MCU era, the Netflix era of the MCU TV shows, and then Black Manta. Loved Yahya Abdul-Mateen as Black Manta back in the DCU. Of course now he's Wonder Man. I put him in A tier. Tombstone, of course, I also put him in A tier. I think we're going to be getting a Tombstone in live action, being played by Tobias Whale himself, who I put in B tier. And of course, you've got Cottonmouth there, an epic photo, also in B tier. Then I put Prowler in B tier as well. I think John wanted him a little bit higher. C tier features Black Spider and then Bronze Tiger. So there you go. That was 10 best Black supervillains. I'm sure there's others we didn't get a chance to cover because there's so many to pick from. Those were some of the most notable ones that we wanted to cover. And that was my tier list. Hello to Caleb. #family. Fantastic Friday to y'all, says Monique. Of course, Caleb saying, imagine having a list of Black supervillains and not having Mr. Glass or the High Evolutionary. I personally will redo this whole list if I could. I blame most of this on John because he made the picks and I can't believe you left those names out, Caleb. So that is a great shout and I 100% agree with you. But yes, Tony, it is a packed Friday. So if you are watching live, we will be doing this Tier List Tuesday special on a Friday because we didn't get to do it earlier in the week. Then we got, in just minutes from now, we'll have DCU Daily coming up live. And then after that, we'll have Fancast Friday. So you guys voted for that as well. Now, speaking of voting, of course, you guys always get to vote on the topic for these shows. So we did have a poll up on the channel for this Tier List Tuesday. And well, that's really where Fast and Furious, won out the day because you look at it, The poll had some good picks. I mean, there's some good choices. Lord of the Rings, you could have picked that. Only got 11% of the vote. I guess it goes to show you maybe not as many people care about it as they used to be. So passionate about that franchise. Harry Potter came in second. Harry Potter movies. I'm sure that will be back on the next poll for the next tier list Tuesday. So that will be up, in probably hours from now, actually, because it's a Friday. So we'll be, trying to get the poll up for next Tuesday pretty soon. So Harry Potter movies will be back, having been the runner up in the poll. DCEU movies Part One, basically the Zack Snyder era, as we're calling it, prior to them pivoting away from the Snyder, influence on the DCEU, that got 20% of the vote. So that left us far and away with Fast and Furious families. I mean, oh, Fast and Furious movies. See, I'm already doing it. I'm already, room, like it's happening, Tony. Um, yeah, Caleb, growing madness is exactly what the Fast and Furious franchise is all about. Yeah, well, Tony, I'm sure Lord of the Rings will be back in the poll eventually because it's too significant a franchise in the history of cinema to not, eventually do a tier list for. But yeah, Caleb joined the chat, and the first thing he said was family. So that's where we will
I don't
start.
have friends. I got family.
That's right. Family. Wait, Toyoko Drift? What's Toyoko Drift, Tony? Did you mean to say Tokyo Drift? It's in the tier list. I promise you it's in there. You might be missing it. It's probably like the one you don't recognize. It's like the orange image. Uh, but I'm not gonna spend a ton of time going over the 11 movies that exist, and of course we know there's a Fast Forever that is coming out in a couple of years' time. So we can't rank a movie that's not out yet. We can't rank any of the future spin-offs that they might do. So we're gonna focus on Fast and the Furious all the way till Fast X, including, of course, the Hobbs and Shaw movie, which was a spin-off of sorts that happened after the eighth Fast and Furious movie before the ninth one came out. So there's technically 11 movies that we'll be ranking today. Yeah, a franchise about racing. You know what? It could get worse, Caleb. It could have been Need for Speed. That died after the first movie, unfortunately. Yeah, I was wondering the same thing. Toyoko Drift. I don't think there's such a thing as a Toyoko Drift. Uh, no, Tony, I do have Tokyo Drift in there. And you can sue autocorrect yourself if you like. Trust me, Tony, the tier list has Tokyo Drift in there. I'm not gonna make a mistake like that with one of my favorite, Cinema Sin project franchises, I should say. Well, I shouldn't say Cinema Sin. It's just one of my favorite franchises as a whole because, look, ultimately, the Fast and the Furious franchise is one that, quite frankly, we make fun of the theme of family, or like we, talk about it in jest and stuff, but genuinely the franchise still connects with an international audience, a worldwide audience, because yeah, sure, the North American audience hasn't connected with the last few movies as much because not as good as the previous. I think the franchise kind of peaked in the seventh movie, and we'll talk about it as we go through the tier list. But the themes of family, the theme of that kind of is interlaced throughout the whole franchise, especially as Vin Diesel's influence grew over the years. It's, I think, the key to this franchise still being around and being what it is. It's also the diversity of the franchise. How many other movie franchises are over the course of the last couple of decades that have, the depth of movie catalog, as well as star power and just box office presence, and just a big Hollywood studio behind it? How many of those franchises feature the diversity of characters and actors, like, people of color? I mean, people of color, female leads, and it's not just, all white guys. The MCU was basically all white dudes for the first, minus Nick Fury and a couple of, minor, exceptions, like, oh yeah, we got Black Widow in there. Every other dude is a straight white guy, like, it's like that. And I'm sorry to say this to the MCU, but that literally, I mean, it's a perfectly valid argument that that's what the MCU was like for the first. I mean, they've diversified since, like, way more than anybody would have seen that coming. But I'm just saying that Fast and the Furious has always been that from the beginning. So I think there's a few things that do work in favor of the series of movies. So yeah. Monique, you are right. Han technically is the one character that predates the franchise. Very interesting stuff. There's actually a probably eventually gonna be that um, Han and Shaw spin-off that they want to do. So we'll have to talk about that maybe down the road. Uh, Fast X is a mixed bag. But you know what? We'll start with the very first one. So let's start this tier list proper, shall we? So we're ranking the Fast and Furious movies, and of course, there's no other place to start other than the first movie, The Fast and the Furious. Uh, it's yeah, call it a shitty remake of Point Break. Call it something that's been done 1,000 times before. Maybe a movie that is a bit too basic, but one of the most like some of the most iconic lines and moments from this franchise still come from that first movie. Not only is it where Dom Toretto meets Brian O'Connor for the first time, it's where some of the key character relationships that have been the bedrock of this franchise all start up, of course. And we get a lot of other characters introduced later on, but it's one of those things where like everything is built on that original movie, and the whole idea, I live my life a quarter mile at a time, and then you later on had the full circle moment in Furious 7, which made freaking grown ass men cry, still does. So yeah, I mean, this franchise pushed DVDs back in the day, man. Like, it's like you remember they were stealing car radios in the first movie. Like, look at how much the world has changed, people. The Fast and the Furious was just another like vehicle for what they were thinking was Paul Walker going to be a huge movie star. Like Vin Diesel, it wasn't Vin Diesel's franchise. I mean, it's really only become that since the unfortunate passing of Paul Walker, but that first movie takes place in LA. They've done like the go back to LA thing multiple times since, but it's just started out as a street racing movie, franchise. Like I still love going to the arcade, and every once in a while I run into like at a Dave and Buster's or something, like the old school like arcade racing, games where you can get to play the old school Fast and Furious games that are like play on LA tracks and stuff, or like the streets of LA. And just growing up too, it's just yeah. There's good memories with this because I kind of grew up around the time this franchise was coming about. So yeah, yeah, Caleb, that's a great theory. But you know what? Let's keep the ball rolling here. The Fast and the Furious, the very first movie. Here's the thing. I agree with Caleb, a solid 6 out of 10. There's not a ton about this movie that is super unique, but it's that thing of if Romeo and Juliet didn't exist, then we wouldn't be talking about every other story that's been told that's based on the premise of Romeo and Juliet. So it may seem basic now, but and even at the time it may not have seemed that significant. But it's not a bad film. It's an enjoyable movie. It feels a little dated at times, but sometimes you like that kind of nostalgia. I feel like especially as we keep going forward in time, there'll be more and more people who will be looking back at the 2000s as their nostalgic decade, and then I think this franchise will grow over time. Yeah, I did compare Fast and Furious to Romeo and Juliet, Caleb. Deal with it. Cope. But anyway, moving on. Too Fast and Too Furious. Probably one of the cheesiest and yet boldest and stupidest and funniest and ridiculous movie titles of all time. Too Fast, Too Furious. Like to the point where every time I think about it now, I think about the moment in 21 Jump Street where where am I forgetting the name of the actor? Not Channing Tatum. Jonah Hill. Jonah Hill's actually no, it's 22 Jump Street. In 22 Jump Street, he's driving the Lambo and he like skids it into the mall while Ice Cube has been kidnapped, and he's like, "Oh, that was a little too fast. Maybe even a little too furious." And I'm like, "Yep, Too Fast, Too Furious." It's Electric Boogaloo. This is where the franchise started having horrible titles. Yep. It was the second movie. It was early on, but you know what? That's the thing. This movie, it like felt like they were like, okay, we did the LA thing. Now we're gonna do the Miami thing. At the time we had two Bad Boys movies out already, Miami Vice, of course, back in the day. But you got Tyrese Gibson introduced in this. They don't quite jump the shark yet. And you had Eva Mendes in this movie, I think, as well. Yeah, they didn't bring back Cole, who played the bad guy. There were decisions made, but Yeah, I mean, this is before Tyrese Gibson ended up in the Transformers franchise too. So I think this was like early career Tyrese, and it's actually there's a whole like curse moment from Paul Walker that is the meme all over the internet forever and ever. But uh, Tyrese Gibson's character wasn't like a punchline in this movie, you know, like he wasn't a punchline until a few movies later, but he was you were taking him seriously, right? So yeah, Suki is adorable, says Monique. A tier, her little S2000 is fire. Yeah, there's this movie is everything about its time, about what car culture was, and if you know somebody who is into cars, like the way that they talked about this in the movies, these movies sort of captured that at a very core level back in the day. Yeah, um, but all that said, um, I still think this doesn't quite rise above B for me. Uh, and I realize even, that might be a little bit generous. Now we get to, of course, the movie that is probably one of the most meme things, and not just the meme, but like just the soundtrack. Every time you hear the music from this movie, the iconic beats, so you're like, oh, you're somebody's drifting around a corner, you put the track under it, kind of thing. Yeah, it's Tokyo Drift, a movie when they said, we're not going to jump the shark. We're just going to jump the entire ocean and go all the way to Tokyo, have no characters from the first two movies. Forget, bringing back Dom Toretto. Forget, Brian O'Connor. We're starting fresh. This is like a retro futuristic sort of thing. Tokyo is, like a little time capsule unto itself. And then Dom Toretto shows up at the end of the movie to kind of tie things together. And then that's a bit of a teaser for what happens in the fourth movie. But holy shit, like the nos and everything, you got Bow Wow in this, little Bow Wow, of course. This is where Han famously is introduced, and then we tie it all together later on in the franchise. So I mean, look, Tokyo Drift, honestly, it's just a movie that it's like like Hollywood has a mystique, like movie magic mystique, and I'm just like, again, I'm probably glazing this too much. I mean, this is also, I think, one of maybe the first one in the franchise that Justin Lin directed, if I'm correct. But or I might be completely off the mark on that. Justin Lin might have directed the first and the second one. Let me actually look that up real quick. John Singleton directed the second one. And then the original was not, yeah, the original was directed by Rob Cohen. So Justin Lin enters the franchise in Tokyo Drift, and yeah, it's got a quality to it, it's got a quality to it. Yeah, I know. There's so much about this. A tier simply because of Han. I mean, the stuff that they did in the downtown Tokyo, that then they tie into some of the most creative ways in which a franchise has ever tied like random like plot threads that didn't work before is what they have done with how Tokyo Drift now figures into the larger mythology of Fast and Furious. So yeah, it seemed disconnected at the time, Caleb, but then the ending reveals it's secretly connected to the rest of the franchise. It's kind of wild, and it's kind of like Japan in a lot of ways. Even today, feels like a time capsule from like the '90s and 2000s. This movie encapsulate that feeling completely, and so you know what? I'm gonna say it, and this is gonna be controversial, but this is my opinion, so I don't care. You guys are welcome to put it wherever you want. I'm putting this in the A tier. I think this, in my mind, this movie just works better than the other two, even though like the other two are, sort of set the foundation for this to build on. But it's also like a guilty pleasure movie of mine. If it's ever on cable, I will never turn it off. In fact, I'll try to rewind back if I can. So yeah. Uh, but yeah, Dom appears at the end of the Tokyo Drift, and then that leads us into, yeah, they introduced drift racing, exactly, which figures heavily into the return of Han the first time into the franchise later in Fast Five. But yeah, yeah, Luke. Yep, he tells Lucas as Han used to be in his crew. Exactly. I mean, they were thinking years ahead back then. You didn't know how deep that connection was when Dom Toretto shows up and tells Lucas that Han used to be in his crew. You were like, are you talking about when you were doing you were stealing car radios? Is that what you were talking about? No, that's not what they were talking about at all. And so, but now we get into the fourth Fast and Furious movie, of course, simply called Fast and Furious, because it was a time back in the 2000s when titles were getting shorter, thankfully, and they were like, you know what, we did the Fast and the Furious. We of course did Too Fast, Too Furious, real like left turn there on the title. Then we decided to do the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, almost completely going in a different direction yet again. So every time we zig, then we zag. Now let's, I don't know, like maybe go straight forward for once, not zag again. So we got the second straight movie from the same director the first time in this franchise, Justin Lin, coming back after Tokyo Drift, and of course Fast and Furious. And it's a movie that came out in 2009. And to give you guys the context of that, like now we're living in a world where the MCU exists, the Dark Knight has come out, and it's like superhero movies are at the top of the world. And here comes the fourth Fast and Furious movie. You've got Michelle Rodriguez, Letty is back, Dom is back, Brian O'Connor is back, Mia is about to have a baby. That's where we have this moment in the movie that is forever immortalized as one of those lines from the film where he's like,
Family just got bigger.
family just got bigger, like that's all from Fast and Furious. And of course this is the movie where we get an introduction to Gal Gadot's Giselle character as well. So yeah, and it's the movie I think where they do they tease, if I don't think that they did, but if I remember correctly, did they tease Dwayne Johnson's character in this? Or I don't think that he was in this yet. He was like the fifth movie proper, but yeah, Justin Lin was thinking long term, definitely. Four, five, and six, before three. Yeah, exactly. In terms of the continuity, Tony. But yeah, horrible titles. It's times it's fast and this times it's fast and furious. Yeah. Four is C tier. The tanker sequence is awesome, but the rest kind of falls flat. Caleb saying the family just got bigger. Yep. I know, right? I feel like they should just run that back in every movie, because like now it seems like it's an Ocean's thing where like every time they do like Fast X, we gotta have 10 main characters. Like Ocean's 11, you gotta have 10, 11 dudes on the crew, or like dudes and dudettes. Yeah, Gina Carano and Dwayne Johnson sort of pop up in this movie, although really in more or less a cameo. So yeah, Justin Long thought a lot about this franchise. I'm sure he's one of the bedrocks of this whole franchise. Yeah, but really, for me, Fast and Furious, the fourth one, because they didn't put the number in there for some reason, but I guess they were like the last couple were so different. Then this is more of a back to the basics. You go back to the original cast, and yeah, they did that whole race sequence where they're like racing across the border, which has all kinds of political connotations today. But and Gal Gadot being introduced, and drug cartels and everything, very relevant stuff, believe it or not. I'm gonna put it in A tier, personally, because again, we're talking about like the context of the franchise. The fourth movie definitely felt very much not only a return to a form, but also at the same time, it just felt like they put together a really good movie where the character moments felt right. Dom and Brian O'Connor sort of have to reconcile. Like it's like, and he's like, oh, it's literally Dom Toretto has the Ross moment. It's like, my best friend and my sister, my best friend and my sister. Like that was literally Dom Toretto's arc in the fourth movie. So he basically became Ross. So I enjoyed the movie. I'll put it in A tier. But now we get to Fast Five. Fast Five. It's one of those movies where, forget that it's actually a Fast and Furious movie, and it's still legitimately one of the best, most impressive movies, action summer franchises like that you would have seen in all of 2011. Like you had Brian O'Connor, you brought in Elsa Pataky, who of course Elena Neves, alongside Luke Hobbs, Dwayne Johnson, and coming in proper as Hobbs. And by the way, Elsa Pataky is married to Chris Hemsworth. Very lucky dude. Jordana Brewster returning again. Paul Walker, of course. You know, you got Vin Diesel. You got the crew. They're in Brazil. Like this is the Brazil movie, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Don Omar. You know, like Don Omar's back. It's yet again. You got Giselle returning with Gal Gadot. Of course, you know Tyrese Gibson. You know, and I keep forgetting. Of course, Ludacris. Ludacris. You know, got introduced early in the franchise. You know, he's back. Damn, Brian, you know, Brian Tyler did the music. He was doing Marvel music at the time, and I'm forgetting who directed this one. I'm gonna have to look this up. Who directed Fast Five? Was this the continuation of Justin Lin in the? Yeah, it was. So Justin Lin doing three movies in a row. He basically this became his franchise at this point. But you know what? This movie's quite simply for the action, for the whole like the heist, the robbery, like bringing Han back and like building that into the like, oh, we need somebody who can drift, and like all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, like that's where Tokyo Drift connects into all this. Great stuff, it's not Fast and Furious 5, it's Fast 5. That's right, Caleb. And yeah, I think this is like Monique is saying, to me Fast 5 has to be like the first S tier movie on this list from the franchise. Like it's not even an argument in my mind. Fast 5 is really where the franchise went up a notch. Like it became like, oh shit, this is a tentpole blockbuster, one of the crown jewels in Universal Studios, ledger franchise. And yeah, Fast Five hit all the marks, and it's got one of those iconic scenes. Is like, "I'll see you soon," like Hop says at the end, and then Dom is like, "No, you're not," like and then they just like do their shit, and then obviously they do see each other, but I don't know how soon. It depends on that's relative, I guess. But anyway, we move on. So to the Fast and Furious 6. For once they were like, we're just gonna, keep it simple. We're gonna actually put the number of the movie in the franchise in the title, Fast and Furious 6. That's what we're doing. So this is of course the movie, the Fast and Furious 6 is the movie where we get the famous
I don't
line.
have friends.
Actually, that's not the
Your
one.
brother never told you never threaten a man's family?
That's right. Take that, Luke Evans. Brother never told you to threaten a man's family. Come on now. Yeah. So, who knew Luke Evans' character had a brother who could cause even more damage? But we get to that in the next one. But dude, Fast and Furious 6. I feel like this is where the franchise. Well, Fast Five sort of like jumped the shark in some ways, but like they did so much of that heist sequence practically that I feel like it's believable that they can pull it off. But of course Han is in this movie. Han and Giselle are a thing by the time we get to this movie. Gina Carano's Riley is back. Owen Shaw, of course, or actually Riley is this is the first time Gina Carano is in the franchise as part of the Owen Shaw's crew. But yeah, I mean, at this point in time, if I remember correctly, uh, like Letty is sort of still getting back into things. Uh, in terms of like her whole like she died but then didn't really die and got saved, like that all happened in the fourth movie because she was like part of the bad guys team. But by the time we get to the sixth movie, we're really like back as a family. We're in London. You got Hobbs mixing it up. There's the whole infinitely long runway sequence. Amnesia, exactly, Tony. Amnesia is what Letty had. But they had the whole runway sequence thing where the runway never runs out. So that was in this movie. And Fast and Furious 6. I mean, come on now. Like the movie ends with Han and Giselle making out on in a supercar on the highway, and they managed to beat the bad guys, and they got off the runway before that plane finally blew up, and still somehow didn't overrun the infinitely long runway. And you had the fights. This it's just all the bravado. I mean, Vin Diesel starting to become a bit of a superhero because they got to make him a little bit of a superhero because you got a literal rock in the franchise. So Fast and Furious 6, I think, is where again the franchise was sort of peaking at the time. Yeah, Wonder Woman and Runway, because and by the way, Gal Gadot, that sequence where she's in the bikini, like Just saying. Just saying. There's many reasons to love this movie. Clearly for Tyrese Gibson and Ludacris as well. But yeah, Fast and Furious 6 for me, A tier. Put it in A tier. Uh, I feel like Fast 5 really sings. Fast and Furious 6 almost gets there. But it's not quite there. But it's still very much, like was like near the high points of this franchise. So I'm gonna put it in A tier because I feel like I need to be very picky about what I put in S tier. I feel like Fast Five easy S tier. Furious Six is probably like somewhere between S and A tier for me. But yeah, I'm gonna put it in A tier and leave it there for now. Uh, no other character ever has had more plot armor than Dom Toretto, Caleb. Monique saying, I did love Tej buying the cars though. Yes, I know, right? He's like, there's only two of them in this world. And he's like, I got one. And he's like, Ludacris like, I got the other one. It's like, okay. Uh, yeah. Well, in the sixth one, Brian was still well, Paul Walker was still alive, but now we move on, and we move on to where I think this franchise, the Fast and Furious franchise, was at its absolute peak, at its very best, Furious 7. And for the unfortunate, tragic circumstances behind the scenes of Paul Walker passing away, in a tragic car accident in the middle of filming this movie, like not while filming the movie, but the movie was in production at the time. I mean, not only like is that one of the roughest positions for any movie, to ever be put in, and not just the producers, but I mean, it's for the director, for the cast members. This predated Chadwick Boseman's tragic passing, and when Chadwick Boseman passed away, they weren't filming like the second Black Panther movie. But I mean, James Wan has stepped into the franchise at this point, and I mean, they had even brought back some characters that introduced Nathalie Emmanuel as Ramsey, and then you had Neela back from the Tokyo Drift, part of the franchise. You have the core crew. This is where at the end of Fast and Furious 6, they kill off Han because then they have to make in Furious 7, Deckard Shaw, the older brother of Owen Shaw, the main villain. But I mean, for James Wan, who at the time was mostly known for just the horror movies that he has done, so many of them, the Annabelle franchise and stuff. But yeah, I mean, you had a Ronda Rousey appearance in this, and so much. I mean, Vin Diesel, Michelle Rodriguez, Ludacris, Tyrese Gibson, everybody who had been part of this franchise, especially like Dom Toretto and Michelle Rodriguez and Jordana Brewster, who had been there from day one. Paul Walker passing away, it's just, I mean, it's emotionally devastating. It's like you physically you would feel sick. Like it's on some days, I'm sure, like they were like, we're still making this movie, but like they did it because they wanted to celebrate the memory of Paul Walker, and they did it with the permission and with the respect and permission, and participation of Paul Walker's family, like his brothers. And think of any situation like this. I mean, granted, they did change the plot up a little bit. Some sequences look different than maybe what they would have. But yeah, it's the way they handled this. The way they handled this franchise in Furious 7 is one of the most graceful, in times of challenge and adversity. One of the you moving forward with grace moments in the history of Hollywood. Like Furious 7 is a movie that you would not expect grown ass men to sit there and cry at the end, when he's like, he'll always be my family, and I'll, he'll always be my brother, and we'll see you down the road or something. There's a little fork in the road, and it's like the whole
What's real is family.
yeah. And that's from the movie Furious 7. Yeah, just a gut punch of a roller coaster. It also has like the some of the most iconic scenes in this franchise. Like they jumped that hypercar through what, two or three skyscrapers. It's like, oh, we're gonna do it. Oh no, we're gonna do it again. Like it's and they definitely at this point that jumped the shark so many ways. But this is the movie where, yeah, I mean, not only do you have the epic montage at the end, one of the most heart wrenching finales to anything ever. I mean, it's kind of one of those situations where you're like, if they called it quits after this and they were like, the Fast and Furious franchise ends here and that's our way of honoring the memory of Paul Walker, everybody would be like, you did it right. You walked away at the very top of your game. And James Wan, under extremely, extremely extenuating circumstances, just did an amazing job at the helm. And of course, Vin Diesel, Dwayne Johnson, Michelle Rodriguez, Jordana Brewster, the Paul Walker's brothers, and everybody else, on the cast, just did really well. And this movie, yeah, Furious 7. It's also where they kind of in the third act they kind of do the whole back to the basics, and you go back to LA, and again I think there were so many ways in which they were paying tribute to the franchise, but also to Brian O'Connor, to Paul Walker, of course, and Kurt Russell is in the franchise at this point. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, Jaimon Hansu, Jaconde. So you had all these Tony Jaa was in this movie. Tony Jaa was in this movie, and a fight sequence with Paul Walker that I keep forgetting about. That's something that it's probably very significant to a lot of people around the world. So yeah, Furious 7. I don't think it's a question in my mind. I don't think it's a question in most other people's minds. This is still, I think, the highest grossing, Fast and Furious movie, and it's definitely by far the best. I think Furious 7 is where this franchise was at the peak of its prime. There's just no doubt about it. It was at the peak, and unfortunately, it hasn't gotten better since. But it's not like it fell off a cliff. So let's move past Furious 7. Of course, the way they ended it, the implication is that Brian O'Connor is happy, with Mia Toretto and their family of two kids at that point, and they're doing their own thing. They're just off screen, and that it's a choice that you can make, and it's a choice that is up to the filmmakers in the moment. And I was okay with that. I think I still am okay with the idea that didn't just like kill off Brian O'Connor's character. But yeah, I mean, Scott Eastwood, yeah, he became a part of the franchise. Uh, but yeah, then we, get to the next one, and this is where, of course, you're saying, Tony, we get the introduction to Charlize Theron. Fast and the Fate of the Furious. In some parts of the world known as Fast and Furious 8, but famous the title again. We're doing that thing where after Furious 7, they decided we want to play with the fate of the Furious. It wasn't even the F8 of the Furious. It was just the fate of the Furious, because FATE, it sounds like an 8. The Fast 8, Fast 8, Fate. Oh, the Fate of the Furious. But yeah, I mean, Caleb, I think it depends on circumstances, but like I disagree with a lot of what they did, with Chadwick Boseman not recasting T'Challa. But again, it wasn't my decision to make, but you go with what you're given. But as far as Fate of the Furious goes, again, you're leaning more heavily now into Vin Diesel as the lead of the franchise. Uh, Dwayne Johnson is part of the franchise. I think this is famously where like that friendship sort of fell apart. But also you have like that whole Arctic tundra sequence with the submarine and everything, which was the big set piece that they showcased. Um, in the movie, and again they keep going bigger and bigger. I forget, is this where like Shaw is now technically a good guy now, or like he's sort of more of an anti-hero because he's no longer the villain of the franchise? So but yeah, I mean, that's Fate of the Furious. So uh, I thought this was where they were gonna, like, the intention was to introduce Charlize Theron as the new villain and then have her be a villain over the course of looking like the next three movies. Turns out that's not how things played out. But I mean, Vin Diesel sort of goes rogue in this movie, and that's how it starts with like the whole AI thing, which some of the stuff that Charlize Theron's character does here, Cypher, feels more and more like relevant to the here and the now. But we also find out Vin Diesel had a baby. Sorry, like Dom Toretto had a baby, and Elsa Pataki's character, who's no longer around, so she's dead. But or they kill her. I remember. Do they? I think they kill her in this movie, and then Vin Diesel's basically like goes rogue to save his kid. Yeah, exactly. Um, can you tell I haven't seen all these movies in the past 24 hours? It's hard to remember all the. There's like 11 of these movies. But yeah, this is where I think it's still it's a good movie, but I don't think it goes above B for me. So again, you go from an S tier movie, Furious 7, to Fate of the Furious. It just felt like the pieces didn't all quite fit. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. What did you guys think about it? Uh, I'm just getting a message from John. He's wondering when we're going live with DCU Daily. I'm just gonna respond to him real quick. Let's see. But Fear the Furious, now you're 8 movies into the franchise, and yeah, he's starting to feel like now with the passing of Paul Walker, like are they starting to run out of ideas? I mean, the submarine sequence worked really well for the most part. But yeah, Dame Helen Mirren enters the franchise as Vin Diesel's. Was it Vin Diesel's mother? No, it's Shaw's mother. Right, it's Shaw's mother. Yeah. Uh, what's somebody else? The OG West Side Story. Rita Moreno. That's later. Never mind. That's not in this movie, is it? That's not in this movie. We get to that later. So. Uh, Yeah, John's wondering if I'm done playing with my cars. Well, John, you can wait. But yeah, C tier I think is a fair place to put it. I just put it in, B tier for me. But let's move on because I think after Furious or Fate of the Furious, we got the first proper spin-off in the franchise, and they went in a direction that, quite frankly, at the time I was like, really, do we need this movie to exist? Like the first time they announced this movie, I was like, huh. Well, I guess I want to see that dynamic. It's all bravado, it's all machismo, and you get to see Hobbs and Shaw come together. You even get to see Roman Reigns a little bit in this movie. Idris Elba is your, superhuman villain. Uh, Probably not the most fleshed out character. Uh, but you get Vanessa Kirby, the Shaw's sister. Did not see that coming. You have Isa Gonzalez in this movie as well, in a role. So yeah, there's there's a lot going on in this franchise at this point. So yeah, yeah, exactly. The Shaw siblings' mom. So that's where you get Helen Mirren introduction, and all of a sudden we're starting to realize that this franchise can pretty much attract any and every superstar it wants. And quite frankly, I mean, look, this was directed by, if I remember correctly, I think David Leitch directed this. And yeah, David Leitch directed this, and this movie was made for $200 million, and I'm pretty sure it was like the highest grossing movie in the franchise, outside of Furious 7, made $760 million, which is just kind of crazy to think about. I'm just gonna pull up the box office for numbers for all of these movies, and see if I'm correct about these grosses, because I'm looking at domestic box office. I'm gonna look at the worldwide, because I know, like, the worldwide, I'm pretty sure Furious 7 still holds the record. Um, let's see. Franchise box office totals. You guys let me know in the chat where you think, because I'm pretty sure Hobbs and Shaw ended up being one of the highest grossing in the franchise. But anyway, I mean, the movie is a lot of fun. If it's the definition of a popcorn action summer blockbuster, uh, to me, it's kind of hard because I think it's B tier, sometimes maybe A tier. There is a Ryan Reynolds cameo out of nowhere. There's also the Kevin Hart cameo out of nowhere. So yeah, I mean, between the budget and the advertising budget that they had for this movie, I'm pretty sure it broke even, if not made a slight profit. If you look at the worldwide grosses of the franchise, Furious 7 made 1.5 billion. The Fate of the Furious made 1.18 billion dollars. So of course, following in the footsteps of the seventh movie. But then, Hobbs and Shaw comes in fourth, right behind Fast and Furious 6 with 760 million worldwide. Even F9 made 719. I mean, these movies still make plenty of money. But again, Hobbs and Shaw, to me, if I'm being honest, with myself, I'm gonna say this is an A tier movie. Uh, it's just fun to watch. It's like a very rewatchable film, because you go in, you watch it, you have fun, you walk away. It doesn't change your life. It's not like changing your worldview on anything. But like Hobbs and Shaw, it 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 does it does give you that, like, perfect summer box office experience, right? Like, you go and watch a movie, you have fun, then you move on with your life, and you go about your business, keep going on your vacations or whatever you're doing. It's the kind of movie that is made for the summer box office, and it works really well. And so I just remember this movie for just being a lot of fun. you know. Yeah, I know Roman Reigns shows up in the island, and we get to flesh out both of these characters a hell of a lot more. So yeah, and from there, I think the franchise has never just quite been the same, because then we get into Fast and Furious 9, aka F9, the Fast Saga. Of course, by the time we get to F9, the Fast Saga is 2021. So now we're like, pandemic time essentially. And we are in a post Avengers Infinity War saga. So for some reason, they decided they wanted to call it the Fast Saga because the word saga was like a big deal at the time. But yeah, uh, the Fast Saga is probably F9 is probably one of the worst movies in this entire franchise, because quite literally, I mean, I get it. Like they literally filmed, driving cars out of the back of like a C-130, cargo, military cargo plane and stuff. In the was it the seventh movie, Furious 7, and it was like done for real. Like there's a feasibility to it. They did a lot of it practically, but in this movie, they literally send a car into space that is protected from the environment by duct tape. It's like, somebody in Hollywood, like who makes mediocre movies, watched Apollo 13 and thought duct tape is the way to go. Clearly, like we'll just wrap the whole damn car in it. And that's the answer. Like, great. So yeah, the whole slingshot car off the bridge. There's so much shit in this movie that, yeah, it's this movie is hard to watch. I've seen it once, and then I've seen it in parts. I can't watch it all. Like it's just, it's like, it's almost like the franchise is making parodying itself, and it's kind of self-aware of it. Like I appreciate that they bring back more of the characters from Tokyo Drift. So like it's good. You get John Cena, of course. You get the introduction of John Cena. You got Jacob Toretto. Turns out, Dom had a long lost younger brother. Great. So of course, the usual suspect at this point, Han, Ramsey, Roman, they're all still around. Letty is still there. We're getting to see Dom's boy grow up a little bit more. There's a lot going on in this movie, but yeah, somebody joked after the submarine sequence in Fate of the Furious, where they're gonna go next, space, and they were like, yes, and they did. So, Fate of the Furious, yeah, it's turns out in this franchise, when you either die a villain or you live long enough to see yourself become the hero. So that's how it works. It would have been ridiculous as an anime. I know figure drawing, but I bet you it would have hit different. Maybe even better. But okay, look. F9 is one of the worst Fast and Furious movies. And even for John Cena, who's improved a lot as an actor, this was one of his like more. It felt like he was back into his Marine days, quite frankly. Yeah. I mean, and not to mention, like, you get to see, like, the whole, like, young Dom Toretto, and, why he started to do what he did. And, apparently his father was a racer and stuff. And there's more to this than I live my life 1/4 mile at a time. Because like, apparently Dom Toretto is not always just a street racer. Like, that's not, he actually has a background in actual, like, proper competitive, motorsports, and it runs in the family. You do get to see Rita Moreno and get introduced, and as Dom's mother. Of course, everybody in Dom's family is, super decorated, but this movie's budget was insanely high. And for a movie that this spent like $500 million making, uh, it only made 719 million at the box office, and the domestic box office, the North American box office, was only like 173 million, which Hobbs and Shaw did something similar, but Hobbs and Shaw, was made for, about the same amount of money, maybe a little bit less, and did relatively better. And for a spinoff, I think it was perfectly fine. But when the mainline movie is doing about the same, if not less than the spinoff, that's when you start to worry the franchise is maybe, not just jumping the shark, but just, not quite what it used to be. So yeah, die a villain or become a hero. That's how this works. That's how this works. Remember, like, if even Owen Shaw, like, came back I'm just saying, like, Deckard Shaw, he didn't die. He just became a hero. It's how this franchise works. I mean, it's the long lost brother of Don Toretto. Started out as a villain, ends up being a hero. That everybody is redeemable. So, they should have Kylo Ren in the Fast and Furious franchise. Then maybe we would get to see the Hunt for Ben Solo movie. So yeah, ground control to Major Dom. Yep, that's pretty much Fast Nine, or F9. The first movie in this tier list I want to put in C tier. It's just they had the pieces never fit together. They never quite fit together. So yeah, it's crazy. Something as lowbrow as Peacemaker is probably John Cena's best role. I know, but that's the thing. It's not just the material. It's what you do with it. So, and that's the one of the true talents of James Gunn, that he's been able to take something as irrelevant as a Peacemaker and turn it into something as amazing as it has become. Especially with John Cena being at the lead and at the helm, and some of his best work as an actor. So you always got to give credit where it's due. And then all similarly, like, Iron Man, nobody cared about Iron Man, nobody gave a shit about Iron Man. Then we got John Favreau's Iron Man in 2008. Marvel went all out. They would have been done if Iron Man did not succeed, and it did. And MCU, so like sometimes those big risks and big swings pay off. Hopefully you're listening out there, David Ellison at Paramount. Yeah, nobody dies in the Fast and Furious franchise. Nobody. Han died, came back. uh, it's, I'm sure that will happen again, like to other. It's just nobody dies. Nobody. I mean, Letty died, came back. Turns out, uh, yeah. I thought Cipher was gonna turn good too. They just never quite made that. Maybe, I mean, you know what? There's time yet. There's time yet. So, Figure Drawing saying, have you seen Pantheon, the sci-fi animated drama? I think you would super like it. Okay. You know what? I'm gonna make a note of that. I haven't seen it, Figure, but I'm gonna try to watch it. Like, you tell me, is that on Netflix? Like, where can I find it? Is it on Crunchyroll, Pantheon? Just let me know, because I gotta, I'll Google it, but it might be helpful if I know where to look. Um, yeah, the kid in the first one did die, Tony. Gosh, why do you gotta like ruin our jam? Um, the hell you want to call it? Yep. I cared about Iron Man before the movie. I know you did. I'm just saying, in the general mainstream audience didn't know or care about Iron Man. That's the point I'm trying to make. It's like you take a risk, and we're talking about Peacemakers getting sidetracked. Hunter Iggy's here. They should take out the fast crew before this start. Um, I don't know what you mean by that. Oh, it's on Netflix. Okay, Pantheon is on Netflix. Thank you, Figure Drawing. I'll keep that in mind. Well, now we come to the last French movie in the franchise so far, thus far, because when we're doing this tier list, they have announced Fast Forever. It's gonna come out, I believe, in 2028, and that means, in 2026, it's not even in production or even in pre-production. So, that being said, Fast X is the latest in the franchise, a franchise that at this point, literally anybody and everybody has been a part of. And just look at this poster artwork. Like, just look at, I mean, not only do you have like characters and actors from almost every movie in this franchise. I mean, you do also go back to Brazil, and you get Jason Momoa. It ties back into Fast, 5. And this franchise has a rich history of, revisiting older villains and storylines, and just kind of like reading all of those pieces back into each other. And I do appreciate about that, because like the MCU has proven that even when they tried, they have a hard time doing it. But yeah, Fast X does sound like it could be like a adult parody of the franchise. But anyway, but like the Fast and Furious franchise, at this point, I feel like they're like, we get to do whatever the hell we want. AKA Dom Toretto, Vin Diesel gets to do whatever the hell they want. I did see your comment, Hunter. I just don't know what you meant by it, but I mean, Jason Momoa's character was a lot of fun. Alan Ritchson is in this movie. Doesn't do a whole lot. Brie Larson is in the movie. Famously, when Brie Larson joined the movie, we did
And it
the.
just got bigger.
Yep, that's where that's from. Monique says it's in C tier simply because of Jason Momoa and Alan Ritchson. Yep, yeah, yeah. She she don't like the Momo. I think she says it helps elevate it, not drag it down. Uh, yeah. Uh, well, look, Fast X is a mixed bag. as a whole, I enjoyed parts of it. It's clearly at this point Dom Toretto is a little superhero. Like he's survived a parking lot, collapsing on him, getting hit in the head with like metal pipes and shit that would literally put most people in a hospital and never walk again, kind of such things. But yeah, the behind the scenes drama became really apparent because Louis Leterrier had to step in because Justin Lin, who had been in charge of this franchise for years, even directing the previous movie F9, finally walked away as the director, and then Louis Leterrier came in and did a decent job with what he was given, and he's back, I think, doing the final movie, potentially the Fast Forever as well. Um, but you know what? After a couple of movies where Dwayne Johnson wasn't around, we do get to see the return of Hobbs. Hobbs is back in this movie, and Shaw is still around. So yeah, yeah, Alan Ritchson and Momoa both did play Aquaman. That's a great shout, Tony. Uh, yeah, you know what, Grebiel Fuentes, hello in the chat. It is better than F9. It's. I think F9 is where the franchise sort of cratered, uh, and went to space. But this, you know, this movie is an improvement on F9, but that's a low bar. Uh, yeah, Giselle also comes back. Dude, I can. Everybody comes back in this movie. It's just, yeah, Gal Gadot's apparently again another character that didn't die. Nobody dies in this franchise. I mean, of course, after this movie came out, there were like real doubts about where they're gonna go next, if they're gonna even do. I think the idea originally was to do maybe two more, but I think the capacity of the franchise at this point maybe was just to sort of sustain one more movie, maybe, and then possibly some spin-offs. I would love to see another Hobbs and Shaw movie. Maybe give us that. I think they were teasing a Hobbs and Jason Momoa. I forget the name of the Jason Momoa character, like spin-off, chasing after him or something like that. Charlize Theron is back in the movie. Uh, I mean, look, the movie's Fast X made 714 million that worldwide. That makes it the sixth highest grossing of the franchise. It's more than Fast Five, but Fast Five came out in 2011. That was like right when the franchise was taken off. It made less than F9. It made less than Fate of the Furious. It made less than Fast and Furious 6, the seventh, Furious 7. It also made less than Hobbs and Shaw. So clearly diminishing returns at this point. And even more importantly, domestically, it became the lowest grossing movie in the franchise, in almost a decade, with $146 million. So yeah, I mean, even like Fast Five made over 210 million. So this was like the lowest grossing movie in the franchise domestically in North America, since the Too Fast, Too Furious, I think, actually. Yeah, it's kind of wild to think about. I mean, and that's really where I think Universal started to wonder, are we going to be able to do any more of these, because the budgets on these just are getting completely out of hand, and we can't sustain this. So yeah. uh, do I think Jacob is actually dead? No. No. Nobody dies in this franchise. John Cena's coming back. Ultimately what we're building towards is the entire Toretto clan. I'm gonna say even Toretto's father did not die. We're gonna have him come back, probably played by some A-list actor. I can't put my finger on it. Maybe it's Antonio Banderas or something. We're gonna get the whole Toretto clan back together again. The family is gonna be back together again. So Hunter Iggy saying, I mean, they should take out the Fast and the Furious crew out before they got started, and that became a problem. No, then we wouldn't be doing this tier list. And I feel like these movies existing has been actually in general still, been progressive, for Hollywood, where a lot of the 2010s blockbusters were still largely led by, just mostly, and not all, but mostly, like, straight male dudes. So straight white male like the dudes. It's just, this franchise has always been diverse from day one, and the diversity showcase, I think, it's also why the franchise connects with audiences all over the world. It doesn't feel uniquely American, so, and to the point where now this franchise is almost reliant on the international box office to actually be viable. The last couple of movies have made way more money internationally than they have had in the US and Canada. So yeah, it's one of Universal's, crown jewel franchises. They've almost killed it off, but maybe if they turn things around with Fast Forever, have a great send off, technically Brian O'Connor still is around in this. Maybe I think they've hinted at Dom Toretto. Well, Vin Diesel has hinted at the idea that maybe they'll, give Paul Walker a cameo appearance, maybe using the similar technology and permissions from his family and estate, and maybe his brothers will come back and to kind of, be stand-ins. Total speculation. But if Fast Forever sends the people home happy, if it could be the end game of this franchise, then I'm all for it. But Fast X as a movie, it's yeah. I mean, Jurassic World, it's is is the other big franchise Universal has, but and Cars and Dinos will always sell tickets, but Fast X is definitely not the best the franchise has ever put out. Discussing Fish tweet about Christopher Nolan directing the next. No, yeah, I know the Discussing Fish account. He's caught me a few times because I keep thinking it's discussing film. That account that's hilarious. Yeah, yep. Very diverse. Races of all types are tired of this franchise. Thank you for that figure drawing. Uh, but look, for a franchise that's 11 movies in at this point, they've had some big hits. Not everything hits, but their hit rate has been pretty good, for the most part. Uh, they had to pull up in the driveway with his brother standing, and yep, they did at the end of Fast X. So, yeah, we got a semi cameo with what people would imagine was would have been Paul Walker if he was still around. But yeah, so Brian O'Connor, I'm sure is gonna get at least a nod, if not a showing, a brief cameo in the last movie. But Fast X, I feel like it's an improvement, on Fast Nine. Is it better than C tier? I don't know. I'm gonna put it in B. I'm gonna put it in B tier because I don't think any movie in this franchise is quite as bad as F9. So, yeah. And yeah, Jason Momoa was pretty fun. Like he brought that, puppy like energy in the movie. So he did a really good job. Yeah, Friday the 13th movies on and then some more. Yeah, this franchise ain't gonna be done once they get to Fast Forever. They're gonna be spin-offs. Eventually Dom will return, they will get to see Vin Diesel back, but yeah, I'm sure Christopher Nolan is a fan of this franchise, by the way, Sir President Christopher Nolan. So that's actually true story. So yeah, everybody has their favorites, and they don't have to be the best things ever. So that being said, that is my tier list. As you guys can see there, we got Furious 7 at the top, probably the best movie in the franchise. Fast 5, another one in the S tier. I think those are two clearly best movies this franchise has ever put out. Then we go down from there, and you got Tokyo Drift, A tier. A tier. I will forever defend it. Tokyo Drift is my A tier movie. Fast and Furious, the simplest title in the entire franchise, the one that probably made the most sense, the one that most people think of. That's the fourth movie. That's where we see the return of the original cast in 2009. That's also an A tier. Then Hobbs and Shaw, of course, the only spin-off in the franchise. I also think it's very rewatchable. It's just summer popcorn blockbuster. In A tier. Fast and Furious 6, another one with that people remember for like an iconic action set piece, like the infinite runway fight sequence. So then you got The Fast and the Furious in B tier, the OG. Then you got Too Fast, Too Furious in B tier, where Tyrese Gibson enters the franchise. Then you got The Fate of the Furious, where when Diesel goes rogue, Dom Toretto, turns bad to save his baby, to save his boy, in B tier. Then Fast X made it into B tier, the latest movie in the franchise up until this point. And then F9, The Fast Saga, which felt like somebody just looked at the F9 key on their keyboard and were like, that's a title we can use. F9, F10, F11, F12. There is no F13 on my keyboard, so I guess maybe that's when we run out. But it looks like F12, which will be called Fast Forever, is going to be our final movie in the franchise. So there you go. Now let's take a look at what you guys voted for, because the poll is up. Because that's where we will wrap the show, as we usually do. Again, the link is in the live chat. It's pinned to the live chat, so you guys are welcome to go in and vote for your version of the tier list. Currently, we've got a few of you already, who have voted, so we'll refresh and take a look at that. But the tier list link is in the live chat. It's also in the description of this video, so definitely go and check that out when you can, and vote for your version of this tier list. Yeah, I hear you. Jason Momoa, though, I think made the most of his appearance in this franchise. Uh, Yeah, Hunter, maybe you should get Batman on that. Batman can probably take out everybody one by one. That's kind of his thing. So, let's take a look at the votes so far. I'm gonna refresh one more time. So here's what you guys voted on. According to the votes so far, and again, this poll is live for another week, basically, so you guys can keep voting on this. The link is in the chat in the live chat in the description. We got the Fast and the Furious, the original movie, in S tier. The fourth movie, Fast and Furious, also in S tier. Fast 5, also in S tier. Then you got Fate of the... Oh, sorry, not Fate of the Furious. You got Tokyo Drift in A tier. Then you have Too Fast, Too Furious in B tier, alongside Fast and Furious 6 and Hobbs and Shaw. And I don't understand why Furious 7 is in C tier. Like, okay, great. I need to, I'm gonna put my vote in later because I feel like Furious 7 should easily be in S tier. Fate of the Furious in C tier, okay, I get that. F9, the Fast Saga and Fast X both in D tier. Fair enough. I totally am okay with that. So yeah, the only thing that surprises me here is somehow Furious 7 is in C tier. You guys gotta go vote, man. You gotta go vote. Raise that profile. Furious 7 is probably the best movie in this franchise. So hello M2G. This is your chance. Go watch these movies. There's plenty of them out there. So, but hey, you know what? With all of that done and dusted, that's the Fast and the Furious franchise tier list. And you got the vote up for another few days. Go check it out. And just remember, it's always about family.
You don't turn your back on family.
And with that, we look ahead to Fancast Friday, which, if you are watching live, you are part of the family, M2G. You are. But yeah, we got Fancast Friday coming up in a couple of hours if you're watching us live, because we are doing this on a Friday, actually, which is usually not the case, because, you know, it's in the name, Tierless Tuesdays, but it ended up being a Friday show this week because we were, I wasn't feeling well, John wasn't feeling well. So right after we are done here, we got DCU Daily coming up, and then after that, Fancast Friday. It turns out the poll got a little bit closer toward the end, but we still have a winner, and the winner for Fancast Friday coming up in a few hours is DCU Saint Walker, which is a Blue Lantern. So, there's Blue Lanterns as well in DC, not just Green Lanterns. So we're going to be doing a Fancast Friday episode with that. Turns out DCU Deathstroke got real close, but not quite there, but, came in second. So I'm sure we'll be voting, him as an option for next week's poll. Then we got DCU Bane coming in with 20% of the vote. And then MCU Rhino, which came in second last week, came in last this week with only 6% of the vote. So yeah, Saint Walker. Sorry, Tony, you guys voted on it. So that's the topic tonight. Maybe, Deathstroke will be back on the poll for next week. So maybe it can win for next week. But John already made his picks. Winter is coming. Hello, how are you doing? We are just wrapping up Tier List Tuesday. If you are just tuning in live, then be kind and rewind. I feel like that's another Yush burner account, so we'll leave that there. But that does it for the Fast and Furious tier list for the movies, of course, not including Fast Forever. I'm sure we'll do a rehash of this once Fast Forever comes out in a couple of years' time. But until then, until I see you next on DCU Daily, make sure to make sure to always take care of your family, because really that's what it's all about. If there's anything Don Pareto has taught us, is that it's always about family.
What's real is family.